and I heard some German troops coming from down the river, and there was 3 of us, and I knew there was probably a platoon size the way I could hear from all their noises. So I told my 2 buddies, I said, look, y'all get behind some rocks, and I'll go down here about 30 yards, and I'll challenge them and see what comes up. And I said, if they get me, then maybe y'all can run back to the company. So I was scared. Anybody that says they're not, they're not, but I was scared. But I didn't let it get the best of it. But when they got inside of it, I challenged them. Well, they stopped. And this one man came up, and he was their platoon sergeant. And we talked, and he said, we've walked all night. We knew that the Americans were in this area, and we didn't want the Russians to capture us. So we wanted to surrender to them. I said, well, okay, then. Told them what to do with their weapon. I said, now, don't mistake me. If you make a false move, we'll shoot every one of you. He didn't know how many I had with me, see. But they stacked all their arms over there, and it was probably about 30 of them.
Vietnam, now, believe it or not, that was a beautiful country. And they had seasons, similar to ours, but they were a little stranger. The dry season was drier and hotter. The rainy season was a whole lot wetter. Because if you ever watched Forrest Gump on TV, when he was talking about it raining over there, and he made the little comment about it raining up, he was speaking true words, because it would actually flash and hit you in the face.
Probably about 90% of the crew was new recruits. A lot of them had never been to sea. And the first time out to sea, well, we went out of San Francisco, and the water out there is real rough. And a lot of these new recruits had never been to sea, and they got sick. Probably all of them got sick. I didn't get sick. And of all things, that evening out, we had lasagna for supper, and it did not look real appetizing. Of course it was, but to these men that were sick, my goodness, it was real repulsive to them.
Actually, all the guys in the office, we had one guy from Massachusetts, one guy from Iowa, one guy from California, and one guy from Texas. And then my first class was from, well, he was a career Navy guy. He was originally from Colorado, but his wife lived in San Pedro. And all of them good friends. And then I got to hanging around, I got into surfing, and none of these guys surfed. So it was some of the Marines that served on our ship that got me in, and we could actually surf over at Camp Pendleton. So we got private beaches to surf on. So yeah, I made good friends. And actually, when I got out, the California guys said, look, you don't have to go back to Louisiana. You can stay out here, we'll get you a job. I said, I hate to tell you guys, but I can't wait to get back to Louisiana. So.
And I remember that they came out with who's going home first. They came out with a point system. Depending on your age, depending on if you were married or not, depending if you had any children, depending on how many years you had in the service. All of those things carried points. Well, I was pretty low on all of those. I was young, I wasn't married, hadn't been in that long, so I was way down on the totem pole. And I remember these old big ships, they had confiscated a bunch of cruise ships. And periodically one would come to the main dock at Guam and pick up about 4,000 or 5,000 people. Guam became a consolidation point. And I remember we'd go watch that old ship load up and go home, and there we'd be squatting on that island, and finally it came my turn to get on one of them ships to go home. That was a thrilling moment. Maybe that's the most thrilling moment.
We was allowed to go downtown
But when we went, they want you to go in 2 or 3 together so you can watch yourself, because you never knew who was riding that motorcycle before it was the enemy or just the South people that was there, you know. And we'd go down to the USO and eat and sit around there and talk a little bit. And we had to be back to the base before midnight, and they had a bus that would carry us down there, and the bus was all enclosed with wire, and outside of the wire was steel bars real close together, so they would have problems, you know, like trying to throw bombs or something inside the bus while it was moving. The bus never did stop. When it come to a red light, it just going through it, because they were afraid if they stopped for any length of time that somebody would run up there and try to blow us up.
They had an underpass on that Arnold River, and they told us to be quiet and not make no noise going through that underpass, because if them Germans heard anything, they'd shell you. I said, yeah. Said you'd get a Purple Heart. They call it the Purple Heart Pass. That underpass, you know, when you went through that, you nearly got a Purple Heart when you went through there. And we went and joined them, and we started out next morning. And I was scared. I didn't know. I didn't know nothing, you know. And it was a big step for me.
I met people from all over the world. Typically, all of them either a state or property in the United States. I met some people that came into the state, that immigrated to the United States, became citizen, and then joined. You'll be amazed when you learn some of the customs and traditions of other cultures.
On board patrol vessel, any type of floating vessel, you have to have watches all the time. Whether even if you're tied up to a pier, you have to have somebody on watch, because the ocean doesn't never quit moving. You have tides and so on that you have to adjust mooring lines if you're moored. At sea, you have to have somebody on watch, watching in our position, radar. That one major thing we watched was fishing vessels. Many of them we searched, kept an eye on them. There's Vietnamese fishermen, a lot of them that just go offshore during the day fishing, trying to make a living.
It was actually me and my best friend that I have now that I met there at Basic. We was going through this one lane training, and lane training is basically, you know, they got a lane set up that either you low crawling through it, or you running through it, or you're doing whatever type of training that you're going through, right? And that was the first experience that I went through that they actually had simulators set up, that bombs was going off, people shooting over your heads, you know. And my battle buddy, my best friend, he was freaking out. He was freaking out, and it was kind of hard, you know, when you have a battle buddy like that, you know, and you saying this is a soldier that's gonna be fighting next to me, to see him freaking out, that really threw me off a bit. And it was kind of hard to respond to, but we both made it through, and we still chit chat from time to time.
That's good.